Okay, well, I know we've been talking for a little bit, but officially, welcome everyone. We're really glad that you're here. And today we're talking about something that we have found often goes unseen, but is also deeply felt. And that's the kind of hidden reason that we oftentimes feel stuck or disconnected or like a part of us is even missing. And so we're going to explore what happens when the heart fragments in response to grief, trauma, being emotionally overwhelmed, and how those scattered pieces quietly shape basically everything from our relationships and our self-worth to our ability to trust, feel, thrive, pretty much everything. But I want to start with some hope. Fragmentation is not the end of the story. And by the end of our time together, you'll understand why we disconnect from parts of ourselves in order to survive. And then also what it looks like to gently and compassionately return to wholeness. And you'll also understand why some people keep fighting the same inner battles over and over for years and years, why others finally begin to heal and feel and live with clarity, connection, and peace, which is obviously what we all want. But before diving in, there's just a few things we want to mention just so that you get the most out of our time together. This workshop will be about 90 minutes with the last 30 minutes set aside for questions. We love questions, by the way. Also, we would love to see you and connect. I think everybody has their screens on. So if it's at all possible, please have your camera on. But we know sometimes it's not. Sometimes people are eating dinner. Sometimes they're trying to get other stuff going. So, but if you can, great. And lastly, feel free as we go through to interact with us in the chat. If you have any questions, please also put those in the chat, and then we will address them in our Q&A at the end. So tonight isn't about self-help books or hacks or trying harder. This is really just about coming home to your heart, to the parts of you that had to hide just in order to survive. Vicki and I, we're not here to fix you because you're not broken. You're beautifully human. And somewhere deep within, you already have what you need to heal. All we're going to do is remember together. And we're also going to uncover probably one of the most overlooked reasons why emotional triggers keep surfacing, why those feelings of anxiety and of being overwhelmed continue to linger, why your nervous system still feels like it's fighting battles that are long, long, long over. So we're going to talk about grief, obviously, but not just the kind that comes from losing someone, but the grief that lives in the quiet places, the grief of unmet needs, of bitter disappointments, of childhood memories that were never repaired, of carrying burdens that were never meant to be yours to carry. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how to begin healing so that you can finally break free from old patterns and build a new kind of strength that doesn't seek to numb out. It doesn't try to pretend that everything's fine. We're talking about the kind of healing that is gentle, steady, but deeply resilient. You are here for a reason, and something in you already knows that it's time.
Yes. So if you have ever thought, why can't I just move on? Or asked yourself, why do I still feel this way? If you've ever felt like you're standing kind of outside your own life, watching it kind of pass by as your soul aches for something deeper. And even if you can't name it, sometimes you can't even name what that is. And if any of that resonates with you, then we want to say that we believe that you are definitely in the right place. Because sometimes the parts of us that feel numb or distant or too much are actually the very parts that once protected us. But what helped us survive then, like childhood, right? What gets kind of planted and created, what helped us survive then is now preventing us from experiencing real connection, peace, and wholeness. It stops the connection. And thankfully, that doesn't mean that you're stuck forever. It means that you are ready to begin. And so during this time together, we're going to explore why we fragment during times of grief or trauma, what that means, how those patterns shape our relationships, our choices, and how we see ourselves, our self worth. And 3 healing steps to help you return to your whole authentic self. And like Dan said, we believe very much that none of you are broken. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. And we always like to say it is never too late and never too soon to begin healing your heart. So, since we are with you on your journey of transformation, I think it would be helpful to tell you a little something about myself. My journey did not begin from a place of strength, for sure. It began from a place of desperation. I spent most of my 20s and most of my 30s, actually all of my 20s, in and out of therapy, trying to find relief from patterns that I couldn't seem to break. I was in recovery. I got sober at 26, so I was in recovery relatively young, and from an eating disorder and from alcohol. And even though I was 10 years sober when I
Mm.
found this process, I still felt like I was constantly fighting myself. There was so much chaos inside still, even 10 years of sobriety and 8 years free from my eating disorder. There was chaos, there was fear, there was still so much people pleasing and shame. And really, I just felt emotionally exhausted. And I didn't want to just look okay. I didn't want to just seem pulled together on the outside. I wanted to actually be okay. And it was through this process of the grief recovery method that I saw something massively shift that was different than all the therapy I had ever done. Because before that, I could look whole on the outside, but inside I was truly crumbling. So, addiction to disordered eating to perfectionism were all armor. And I had spent decades trying to fix myself. And therapy helped and program helped, sobriety. But when I found the grief recovery method, then something deeper cracked open. And for the first time, I could feel my life in real time. I wasn't reacting from old wounds. I felt like I was truly living from a rooted heart. And that's what healing does. It brings the scattered parts of you back together. And that's what we want to really talk about tonight is that fragmentation and then the integration that can happen in healing. I learned what real boundaries felt like. I stopped performing connection and I started living it. And I realized that a lot of what I thought was just my personality, um, that I just didn't have this personality that wasn't ever going to be organized or disciplined. It was actually pain that I had not yet healed. And I'll tell you this, I believe, here's the truth that no one talks about. You can't have real boundaries. You can't stop people pleasing and truly connecting with others until you heal the wounds that taught you that it wasn't safe to be you. You can put all kinds of things on top like a band-aid, but when stuff happens, you're going to respond from the deep places that you learned when you were processing through the pain you were doing.
Yeah.
So I could say that before grief recovery, I was definitely emotionally stunted, doing everything I could to feel better, but never quite getting there. And after, I definitely began to grow in ways I never thought possible. And for years now, since 2003, I've had the deep honor of walking alongside other people who have felt stuck in those similar cycles of addiction, self sabotage, broken relationships, even overwhelming emotions.
And so we know these places because we've walked through them too.
Yeah.
We've experienced what happens when grief is silenced. And we've also witnessed the quiet miracle of what happens when it's finally given a voice and a safe place to heal. And so as a result, we are able to live with greater clarity, connection, and intention. And that's something that we want for you too. I mean, when you have something like that that's so transformative, you kind of tend to want everybody else to have it too. And I just want to point out this is not something that's theoretical for us. We're not quoting from like a book we read 10 years ago. It's actually our lived experience. We've walked through the wounds of loss and addiction and self sabotage. And so, what we found on the other side of that is this: there is a path to freedom. And that path is so much kinder, gentler, and more real than anything the world ever taught us.
Mm.
And so our natural response to grief, trauma, and loss brings basically a flood of different emotions: sadness, anger, guilt, confusion, and a whole bunch more. But most of us were never taught how to navigate these feelings in a healthy way. So instead, we avoid them or bury them or numb them. And this avoidance causes the unresolved grief to become stuck, which then leads to anxiety, depression, unhealthy attachment behaviors, or even other things besides. The bottom line is this: these are all signs that we are living with fragmented parts of ourselves that have not healed. And that's exactly why we're here. Like I said earlier, when you experience something like this, when you experience healing like this, you can't help but want it for other people. And so,
Yeah.
like Vicky, I also had an incredible life changing experience going through the grief recovery program. I would even go so far as to say it transformed every relationship in my life, and especially our marriage. You know, one of the things that early on I was living very much out of my wounds in my marriage. And so I would also respond out of my wounds. And so, as you can imagine, that's really not a very pleasant experience for my wife to live in. And so, in order to stop doing that, I kind of just checked out and sort of isolated, which, when you're in a marriage, is not great either, to have your spouse feel like they're in it alone. And so, what this really allowed me to do is certainly not be a perfect husband. You could talk to my wife or my daughter about that, and they'll be happy to tell you all kinds of stories. I'm not the perfect husband. But what it did allow me to do was I was able to be fully present, not perfect, but present. And that has made a huge, huge difference in our relationship. And so, as both Vicky and I worked on the foundational relationships in our lives using this process, the healing we experienced and the tools that we learned, it fundamentally changed the way that we communicated. It changed our capacity to forgive, our capacity to respond with compassion and to truly listen and honor each other and actually enjoy all the reasons we got married in the first place. you know, so Vicki and I are advanced grief recovery specialists. We have a combined 26 years of experience, and I can say, after guiding thousands of people through life's toughest changes to find true healing, we have witnessed an incredible truth. And that is simply this: when people get free from the unresolved grief in their lives, they become free to be fully present as they navigate life.
Yes, and I want to real quick address Lisa had asked,
Mm,
what does it look like to live out of your wounds?
mm.
What would you say, Dan?
Well, basically, so for example, my mom had a cardiac arrest when I was 8, and it was very jarring. It happened in the middle of the night. I woke up, ambulances are coming in. There's more to the story. I just want to focus on the part that's relevant here. But so that kind of stayed with me. And so now, fast forward, my wife's working, and it's she's supposed to be home at like 7, and it's 7:20, and she's still not home. Now most normal people would go, oh, I guess her client's just going a little bit longer than normal and she'll be home in a minute. My head immediately goes to, oh my God, she's probably dead. What am I going to do without her? I love my wife. Now I'm going to be all alone. How am I going to live my life all alone? We just got married. We are going to build this life. We had all these dreams. I mean, like, I'm just, and then 7:30, my wife rolls in. I'm like, oh, I mean, it was, so I was just complete. That's just one of many examples I could give you of where I'm just completely living out of, my wounds from my past. And so it was creating in me a very different response than what I would ordinarily have in a situation like that. So instead of her, oh, I guess she's just a few minutes late, to, oh my gosh, she's dead. How am I going to go on without her? I mean, it's that's a pretty big shift. So that's kind of one example I could give of what it looks like, living out of
Yeah,
your,
and I want to add that was before cell phones.
yeah, yeah,
And tracking. No, but yeah, I think that that is a great question, and I think Monique said it too, is when we're triggered. So we live out of our wounds when we respond to something, like let's say that's maybe a level 2, and we
yeah,
respond at a level 10
yeah,
because we are triggered, and what's happening is we're responding to something that has happened in the past that is similar, or that is bringing up the same thing in our nervous system, or in our body, or in our mind. So yeah,
yeah,
question, thank you. I wanted to address that right there while we were in that space. But yes, we believe that the truth is that we can't experience strong, healthy relationships while carrying the weight of unresolved grief. And this is why everything begins from by finding the freedom from the pain of grief, trauma, and loss in order to have the freedom to experience your life and relationships to the full. And that's why we believe that this transformation, it happens in two phases. First, there is getting free from the things keeping you stuck. So processing through your grief and loss and trauma, this is what helps you stop the self-sabotaging, right? Then you become free to live the life you were meant, with peace and purpose and connection and joy. And unfortunately, most recovery programs encourage you to step into the freedom without releasing the weight of your past, or without having the tools to process them in a healthy way. And that's why we can really remain stuck, or remain, or doing different things that might have that might give you different results, but it's not healing the root. That's what I would say. So, because the whole point of healing is not so that we can tolerate pain better. We have already learned how to survive sorrow. We have become used to anxiety, and we are well acquainted with disappointment. Healing allows us to escape from the bondage of self limiting patterns and empowers us to step into freedom. And for that, we need hearts that can handle joy.
mm,
We need that because sometimes we don't even know how to receive that. We need hearts that can handle that. We need nervous systems that can feel safe and peaceful, and our souls that are no longer resistant to hope. Have you ever
mm.
felt that way? Have you ever felt like, I don't even want to have hope? I don't want to be disappointed. I have to, I have, oh, there's a word I'm trying to think of, where someone is, I'm carefully hopeful, like that, that whole thing. But
Cautiously optimistic.
cautiously optimistic. That is what I was thinking. Yes. We want to be able to handle that. We don't want to resist that hope. This is what we believe is deliverance. We're getting taken from one bondage to another, and that's not just from that. It's from the belief that you were only made to endure. That's not what your life is meant to be. This is freedom. It's not just from what hurt you, but for what heals you. So, interestingly, losses often shape our identity. So, after death or a breakup or trauma, sometimes we can ask, who am I now? Who am I with this or without this? We can feel like we've lost more than just a person. We've also lost our role in something, or a partner, a caregiver, a child. We can lose our dreams, our sense of safety in this world. And if our identity becomes entwined with these external relationships, then it comes as no surprise, really, that grief can leave us feeling very lost. And I love the question I think Lisa asked early on the beginning is, what grief is. And we mentioned that this is an important thing, that unresolved grief is conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern of behavior. Which I think that when you think about that, it really opens your mind to how many things that we will experience in life that are grief inducing situations. So, building emotional resilience involves reclaiming a deeper sense of self, one that can withstand loss without losing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love this. Fragmentation is not a flaw in your design. We fragment to survive. It's how we protect our deepest self. It's a sign that you loved something, something needed, something lost, something survived. So it's not a flaw in your design. It's how we protect ourselves. And so, how does that we're going to unpack that. What does that even look like? So some survival strategies, they can eventually turn into cages. We numb, we disconnect. It becomes a cage that keeps us safe but disconnected, right? So we will self-sabotage in order to create um distance so that we don't get hurt or we don't hurt someone else. But we do this not because we're weak, but because no one taught us how to heal. And the miracle isn't that we're wounded, it's that we're capable of being made whole again.
Yeah. Which is pretty awesome. And so I think it's important to remember that these three life-changing steps to wholeness, they're not about striving. They're actually just about learning to live from a whole and grounded heart, right? So step one, and we're going to go into more detail about each of these three, but step one is to recognize the fragmentation. Step two is to heal the hidden grief. And then step three is to reintegrate with compassion. And the good news is that you don't have to become someone new. You just need to remember who you are beneath the pain. So, step one, recognize the fragmentation. Trauma taught us to hide our wounds. So, we didn't fail by fragmenting, we survived. All those feelings of being overwhelmed, the shutting down of your emotions, those parts of you that feel distant or numb, they used to be your protection. It was a compassionate response to pain that was far too big for your heart to carry at that time. But what once kept you safe is often the very thing that is now keeping you stuck. So part of regaining wholeness begins by taking notice of, where am I still guarded? Where am I afraid to feel? Where have I become self reliant, not out of strength, but out of fear? And these are some important questions to just let yourself think about, let yourself feel whatever comes up. Don't judge yourself for that. Just
Mm.
let yourself think about it and feel it. Fragmentation is not your fault. It's evidence of how deeply you needed love and how determined you were to keep your heart safe. That's all that it proves.
Yeah. Step number two, the heart cannot carry what it was never allowed to feel. Most of us carry grief we've never named, not just the grief of losing someone we loved, but also of losing pieces of ourselves. The pain of being unseen or of needing more than what was offered. It's silence where there should have been comfort. And you don't heal by pretending you're not hurt. You heal by telling the truth about what was hurt, what was lost, what was never said. And this is how your heart really begins to breathe again. Giving voice to your grief, it releases energy. And that energy has been trapped inside of you for far too long. And that is what allows you to begin to make space for peace and for new patterns, for deeper connection, and this life that you were meant to live. We always say you don't get over grief, right? You're not going to just get over it, but you will grow through it. And then you rise from it in a wholeness of heart.
Yeah. And the thing is, step three, wholeness is not perfection, it's presence. Such a powerful thing to remember, because none of us were ever meant to live in pieces or fragments. Therefore, you were never too much, you were never not enough. It's simply that you were trying to be safe.
Mhm.
And so now it's time to welcome those parts of you that went into hiding, not with judgment, but with compassion, and not to force changes, but to build trust. And this is where healing really becomes integration, the place where your nervous system no longer, is constantly braced for impact, where safety replaces survival. And you begin to believe that peace is possible.
Mhm.
But to live in wholeness is to actually stop fighting yourself, to gather your scattered pieces like long lost treasure. After all, they're all parts of you. And then to live in wholeness is to belong to yourself again, fully integrated and living freely and without fear. This is the resilience that lasts. It's not a temporary season, but it's a lasting resilience. This is where the freedom to grow, love, and live without the fear of self sabotage, this is where that comes from. This is the quiet, healing work of grief that brings you back to yourself.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about healing, and so we should probably take a moment to be very clear about what we mean. Healing is not about erasing the past. It's about redeeming it. It's about gathering the fragments of our pain and laying down the weight that they force us to carry. It's really about living your life with kindness, clarity, and truth, and learning to live from a heart that's whole. One of the things that we repeat each week when we're doing grief recovery is that what we're here to do is help you connect to your emotional truth. And sometimes that can be kind of pushed down and it can be kind of not quite right on the surface. We talk about being honest, being truthful, but what we're here to do is help you connect from your head to your heart to what your true emotional truth is. And we live a lot of our lives disconnected from that. And what we want to do is help. That's what we talk about in doing that integration, learning to live from that. You know how you'll hear it said, the truth will set you free. Well, we believe that it is in connecting to your own emotional truth and giving you a safe place to process it, that that truly will happen for you. And naming places that still feel fragmented. By doing that, we start to heal our grief with presence, not pressure. And we rebuild resilience by becoming our own safe place. It starts here, that you want to be safe for you, because we have a tendency to speak to ourselves in our heads a lot of the ways that we were spoken to.
Yeah.
And if you had a harsh parent or a harsh coach or anything, you will repeat those things when you're speaking to yourself. So we want to build ourselves to be our own safe place first. So if something stirred in you tonight, and if you're recognizing places where your heart is asking for healing, we would be honored to walk alongside you, because the method that we do, the grief recovery method, it's about letting go, but it's also about letting in. We want you to be able to receive love, clarity, and connection, and really to move forward without fighting yourself. I had this really awesome call today from a client that just finished like a week ago. And she called to tell me, and I thought this was so great, that last night she had a group of women over. And these women from her church, she had this group over, and she couldn't believe the shift because, sorry, someone is joining, because she said, I've never been able to receive, and I've always kind of, she had struggled with a lot of rejection in her childhood and in her life. And so the work that we did, she said, last night, all these women were over. There was no weirdness. I had women staying and cleaning up, and she goes, I felt so supported, and I was able to receive that. And she was like, this might seem silly, but I felt like this is totally different than anything I've experienced before, because I could see and feel that I wasn't just there to give. I was able to let them love me and care about me. And I was so encouraged. I was like, that's so awesome, because that's really how you know when you can really see that something is shifting. And I remember when I went through grief recovery, Dan and I were married. We had been married for about 4 years at that point. And my parents were going through a divorce. And that's why I went. And I saw such a difference in the way that Dan and I communicated. And I didn't go to work on my marriage, but it totally changed our communication. And I remember I had big issues with being connected to my emotional truth and being able to express in the moment. And I remember having a conversation and being like, I knew what I was feeling in real time. I was able to express, I was able to be honest. I was never able to do that before. And with a lot of therapy under my belt. And I knew that something so major had shifted. And that's when I called up my friend and said, how do I do this? I need to start. I need to get certified because this was different than anything. And I just wanted to share that because as I was thinking about this, it's like that's the strength that we get to not just cope. We don't want to just teach you coping skills. We want to help you process so that things shift and your clarity and the way that you're present totally changes. It's really about becoming whole. That's why we wanted to call this Journey to Wholeness. So we want to introduce to you the grief recovery method. Um, and so if you've learned something powerful today, the emotional reactivity that you've been blaming yourself for is actually a sign that something deeper needs healing. So emotional triggers are actually signs. They're not failures. They're signs. A trigger is an indicator. And it's so amazing when you're able to see that for what it is instead of just being triggered and reacting. We want you to be able to be triggered and respond. And that's a game changer right there. It's unresolved grief is at the root of feeling emotionally overwhelmed. But healing leads to peace and that deeper connection that allows you to be present. And now that you understand the powerful connection between grief and emotional resilience and how to change this, we have a question. Are you ready for real freedom? Because we believe that the grief recovery method is the best and most effective way to heal these wounds at the root. And that will finally help you to break free from anything that is holding you back. We believe that this is the missing piece. I know that I've worked with a lot of people that have struggled in addictions. And if you're not kind of looking at the grief in your life, you are definitely missing a major piece of recovery. Because when you heal the grief, it transforms those unhealthy patterns. And what we do is actually very personalized to help you navigate life with that strength and resilience. So let's talk about, if you wouldn't mind, we would love to talk about for the next few minutes what that path looks like.
Yeah. So basically, the program is 8 weeks of one-on-one coaching sessions for 90 minutes a week on Zoom. And we guide you step by step through the Grief Recovery Handbook, which is included. And this helps you to kind of process and heal old wounds, challenge limiting beliefs, and really embrace your next chapter. And throughout the process, you're never alone because we offer ongoing support between every session. And for alumni out there, welcome back. You can join our exclusive alumni sessions to keep your momentum going. Um, and then you can touch on this
Yes.
one.
And when we always say that the value of this, and I love this idea of the sprout because it really truly is, when you consider everything that's at stake, your relationships, your happiness, your future, if you're a parent, this is one of the best things that you can do for your kids, for your parenting, for your marriage. When you really see how valuable this program is, then we want you to really grab onto the possibility. We have personally spent several years and thousands of dollars on therapy, on self-help books, seminars, programs, and never did we experience the transformation that we've had with this process, with the method of grief recovery. And really, the real world value of this program is incredible, and we would love for you to experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
So, we like to ask you this, think about any relationships that currently hold pain for you. Think about a relationship maybe that you wish could be better or different. and think about what it would be like to show up differently in those relationships or with the people that mean the most to you. What would it feel like to be able to be fully engaged in your own life and in the lives of others and your family and your closest people? And allow that to sink in because it is absolutely possible. So, since we can only change ourselves, doing the work of emotional healing really transforms every relationship. And like I said, starting with the relationship you have with yourself. And so that brings a whole new level of emotional resilience. I wish this could be taught in school. This is so valuable and so foundational, truly. So it allows you to establish boundaries. It allows you to be honest with yourself, with others in a respectful and healthy way. And it allows you to recognize your triggers for indicators and that you get to choose how you're going to respond to that.
Mm, yeah, and that is powerful. So let's just quickly break down the value of what you get from the program. So a 30-minute consultation call is valued at $100. 8 weeks of 90-minute one-on-one Zoom coaching calls with ongoing support is valued at $1,200. And that's a total of $1,300. But we always do this on our webinars, where as a special thank you for whoever joins us, we are going to share the details of what that special gift is.
Yeah. So, if you are ready to take a next step and look into this, we want to offer $100 off the 8 week program, and the consultation call is free. We love getting calls and getting to hear your story and getting to hear where you are, what you might be wrestling with, and what you hope to gain from the process. And so, we want to do that, and that is totally free. So we will really use the consultation call to craft a personal journey for you, a personal roadmap that is going to help you in your healing journey. And like Dan said, if you are an alumni, book a call too, because there is deeper healing as you continue the work and you do more of the work.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, let's be honest. I mean, dealing with painful emotions is scary. There's really there's really no way to sugarcoat that. But I want you to just try a thought experiment with me. So just think about everything that we've talked about so far. And if all this program did was to help you heal the unresolved grief that's been holding you back from showing up as the person you've always wanted to be, wouldn't it be worth it? If all this did was equip you with tools to create a life where you are thriving, growing, and living in deeper connection with the people you love, a life where you feel safe and emotionally grounded, wouldn't it be worth it? Imagine what your life could be like if you experienced this kind of transformation in your relationships. And the good news is you don't have to imagine this. This is not like some big pie in the sky kind of, wouldn't that be great? This program will do this for you and a lot more. I just want to take this exercise one step further. And that is take a moment to consider the cost of staying exactly where you are right now. Consider the cost of continuing to struggle with self sabotage, damaged relationships, and unresolved grief. This is an investment in you and your future, and you're worth it. You're worth it. It's the bottom line.
Yes. And some of the concerns that we've heard that people have shared with us, questions that we have heard and that you might have as well. One of them is, I'm not sure this will work for me.
Mm,
I remember when someone when I was struggling and someone recommended it to me, I was like, I don't think I need that because I didn't really understand what grief was. And really I can tell you that everyone that we have worked with who committed to the process and finished has experienced incredible transformation. And I can say that with full confidence. Incredible. Sometimes people will say, well, I've tried everything. tried a lot of things, and I'm going to say this is different. This is definitely different. It goes deeper and it actually rewires our thinking at both an emotional and neurological level. We talk about how this is science backed. We're literally rewiring neural pathways that get
Yeah.
that get sealed with trauma and loss, and those neural pathways are strong and that you get pulled into those when you're triggered. We're actually going to rewire those in this process so that you have a choice to respond differently. One question or one concern is that it might be too expensive, and it might be that the cost is is something that you think, well, it's kind of a lot. And what so we want to ask you, what is it costing you to stay the same this this month, next year? And everything we learn costs something. And if you can think for a minute, there is nothing more deserving than an investment in yourself. You are so important. And this is an investment in your family, in your children, in everything, but in your legacy. It's really, truly, truly,
Mm.
truly so worth it. Another question that we get is, but I'm afraid to deal with my grief. Why do I have to go back? Which the other one too is, why do I have to go back and bring up the past? I just want to move forward. And it makes sense, but we hear this often because a lot of us have learned to survive by not feeling. And the truth is that we don't move forward until we process our wounds and our grief and our losses. And in fact, we'll stay where we are. We'll just create new coping mechanisms. And sometimes they work in the short term, right? Sometimes you might get results. But when the root and the foundation are not healed, the results are going to be short-lived and they will not fulfill you. They will
Yeah.
not fulfill you.
That's why we actually call them coping skills.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
we develop it as it's a skill of coping. We don't say, healing skills. We say coping skills.
Yeah.
Um, but this program is it's a little different than probably anything, certainly anything that we've ever experienced. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a step-by-step action program. And it's an action program in which you're fully supported at all times. And we never ask you to do anything that we don't do first. So every part of this process we do before you do. And you'll be amazed at how much transformation happens in just 90 minutes a week for 8 weeks. Each of these sessions builds on the next as it uncovers and heals really a lot more than you can imagine right now. And our only source for the 8 week program is the Grief Recovery Handbook, which is pretty thin, not heavy reading. It's also included. And this is backed by more than 40 years of research. In fact, this program is considered the gold standard in recovery from grief and loss.
Yeah. So we say, take the leap. Your new life awaits. The time to act is now. So we like I mentioned before, we say it's never too soon and it's never ever ever too late.
Yeah.
So it's time to start a journey of transformation, and it's really a powerful opportunity to change your life for the better. So we say starting now is the perfect time to get emotionally complete. And you'll really be truly amazed at how different your life can be with this new skill set that will help you thrive in every area of your life. And we always say to don't be surprised if you get a promotion of some kind when you finish this work, whether that's with work or moving into a new stage of life that you've been kind of stuck or felt like the ceiling has been down, because when you heal this, you open up possibility and you will bring in people that will treat you different. You'll kind of attract into your life a different type of person that is going to respect you in the way that you respect yourself, I guess I could say. So we love this quote. It says, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." So we believe that that is very, very powerful, and we would love to walk alongside you to do that.
Yeah, I just want to throw in a quick word though about um, being ready for it, is that this is something that I highly encourage you um, to do for yourself. Like, I believe in this. I will talk about this all day long. I love it. I've done it. I mean, I've walked people through. I believe in this. However, this is so key. If you're doing this because maybe somebody has nagged you into it, and you're like, okay, fine, whatever, or if you're just kind of being leveraged or guilted into it, or if there's any other influence that's pushing you into this other than I want to do this for me, I would encourage you not to do it. I would really encourage you not to do it because this program is incredibly powerful, but it really has to be about you and what you want for yourself. It can't be about making somebody else happy or getting someone else off your back, or it can't be for any other reason other than you just see this as something you want for yourself. And I always feel very strongly like that's something I really want to put out there and emphasize. So sorry, get around, go back.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it is important that you feel ready and that you want to do it for you. Absolutely. So we will have you will yeah, Monique, the red pill or the blue pill. That's so good. Yeah. And so you guys are going to get an email. The email is going to have this recording and an ebook that we put together. It's just like a guide that's going to give you reminders of what we've talked about and just to understand if you are living with fragmentation, and that's emotional fragmentation, and it's not a bad thing at all. It's normal. It's the way that like we've been talking about, but the guide will help you have great reminders of how to live in wholeness. In that, you'll also get our links for our Calendly. You can book a consultation call with us, and we would love to talk with you. So check your inbox probably tomorrow morning, and we will have that in there. So you'll get that free gift. And we wanted to ask, we have Monique here, and if any of you have been watching your chat, you've seen that she has shared a little bit in there about how she has done the work, and we would love to ask her to share a little bit about her experience.
Hi, Vicky and Dan. I would say your ears must be burning. It's just a little thing about you. It was all good stuff. I was actually on the phone with someone and they're going through a really rough time in their family, and I'm like, you need to give Vicky a call.
Mm,
Vicky or Dan, you've got to give them a call because they literally have a gift on them to help people come into healing and freedom. But for myself, honestly, I've had more than one person that has told me about Vicky over the years, and I'm like, oh, I don't need that. I'm not grieving. I mean, what you went through was way worse than what I went through. Like, wasn't that bad. Like, I don't need that. Like, I don't need that stuff. And then when I did the free consult with Vicky, I was like, oh, that's what it is. I didn't think that was it. Okay. And I went through the program with her, and it wasn't easy. I won't lie, because I was one of those people where I said it would just be better off for me to not have feelings because everything just hurt too much. So I would just rather be numb and feel nothing. I didn't even know how I felt, honestly, about pretty much anything. And working with Vicky, it literally felt like I found myself again that was lost, and I
mm,
didn't know where she was. And the only thing I regret now, honestly, is that I didn't do it sooner. I'm like, man. And what you mentioned about the relationships, I've noticed it has impacted so much of my relationships to such a great extent that I had not even expected. And now when things happen, because life still happens and
Yeah.
painful things happen, and we're going through a painful season right now, even as a family. And it hasn't devastated me in the same way it would have before. And I've been able to feel the feelings and go through it.
mm,
And I feel like I'm a lot stronger now than I would have been had I not learned these skills that I can keep using when things happen that
Mhm.
hurt, which life has a way of doing that. So, I mean, I don't feel like there's any words that are sufficient enough to thank you, Vicky, for, what you've done for me and just being able to work with you. It's been such a privilege, and I'm so glad to be part of your community. And Dan, I love you as well. Your wisdom is like let's just say this, what you're seeing now is nothing. Like when you're a part of the community, you're gonna love them even more. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you, Monique.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's very sweet. Putting her on the spot. Yes, well, we are very grateful and we love to hear people's stories and their breakthroughs. Absolutely. Lisa, great question. Does your faith and scripture enter into your counseling? This is a great question. I love this actually. So, the grief recovery method is not connected or affiliated with church or any religion. It is and it is because it needs to be a safe place for people to process. And there are a lot of people that have been wounded by church or by a legalistic faith. And so what we say is that it doesn't enter in from the standpoint of the grief recovery method. But I will tell you this as a Christian, when I went through this process, I had been a Christian for about 8 years, and this completely transformed my relationship with God because of the safety. Thank you, Monique. Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
He's going to go for a walk. But because of the safety, we want to make sure that people feel completely free to share if they're angry at God. And that's normal. And that's so normal. And there's a lot of wounds from church settings. Things like we talk about things that get said that will appeal to your intellect, but not to your heart. Things like, well, God doesn't give you more than you can handle, which is not true. It's not even scripturally sound. And all it does is make the person that's grieving feel bad about feeling bad. And they might even make them more mad at God because then that like what do I do with that? So I'm supposed to not feel bad. I'm supposed to. So there can be a lot of confusion around that. But what I have found for me personally is that it did transform my relationship with God, because when I finished this process, one of the things that we do is we make commitments every week, and those commitments are for emotional safety, and we promise not to judge, compare, or minimize ourselves and each other. And when I finished this process, I remember realizing that is really actually the heart of God. Like what I got to experience here, the healing that happened without any kind of judgment or minimizing or saying platitudes. It's not just religious platitudes. It's, they're in a better place, or there are a lot of things that get said
Yeah.
at times of loss. And so just to answer that question, I believe that if someone isn't a believer in God, then this is a safe place. And if they are, and I've also seen people come back to God in the process, because a lot of times another thing that happens is that we blame God. We can really blame God and be so angry. And then when we get to process through and heal these foundational wounds, your perspective shifts on so much, because you're able to kind of see things through a different lens. And so it really transforms your relationship with God. So even though it doesn't have faith per se in the program, I believe that it's really an extension of how God listens and loves. And I love, Lisa, you have such good questions. Do I feel like it's also helped me love people better? 100%.
Yeah.
100%. How would you
I'll just throw in that, when you have wounds, you're first of all operating on limited capacity.
Yeah.
So you only have so much grace you can extend to somebody else, so much patience, so much mercy, and your tank, so to speak, is oftentimes running on fumes because you just don't have anything. You may even really care about the person, you just don't have it in you. It just isn't there because all of these wounds are taking up so much air. They're taking up so much space in your life that you don't have room to give much of anything else. And so part of what this does is this doesn't I don't want to suggest that like, oh, your life will be perfect. And it's not like that. But what it does do is, right now when we're in a wounded place, we just react. Something happens, it
Right.
triggers a response in us that reminds us of some pain in our past, and we respond out of that pain immediately. Just like literally pulling a trigger, bam, that fast. What this does is this gives you space emotionally to respond differently. So now something happens that reminds you of that. It's still hard. I mean, hard is hard. But now, instead of it, you're responding out of your trigger, out of your past, now you have this space to make a different decision with. And to be honest, after a long time, there's habits that are built around that space that make it easier to make the bad choice, but at
Yeah.
least it feels like there's a choice. And at least you're able to show up differently because now you have this space to operate from that's actually free. It's not shackled to a bunch of memories, it's not shackled to a bunch of triggers and past hurts. It's just what's going on right now and how you're responding to that right now. And it's really powerful. Great
Mhm.
question, too.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, you can either unmute yourself and ask us, or you could ask us in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing too, Lisa, on that. I remember when I decided I wanted to do this and my mom was worried and she said, I don't know if this is good for you because I was always kind of the one that took everything on. I was the fixer and I was the one very codependent. And
Yeah.
and I get it. And the tools that I've learned in this process, it helps me to be present, not just for clients, but for my daughter and for Dan. And it's not my job to fix, but I'm
Mhm.
able to listen without taking on the responsibility emotionally and also taking on any shame, like as a mom, like, oh, like it's a reflection on us when my daughter, who's now 20, has gone through, you go through the teens or you go through these different seasons and it's like, wow, that I can have that the ability to see where I end, what is my responsibility actually, and how I can actually show up in a way that is not codependent, that is not enabling, that has very clear boundaries, emotional boundaries. Because we feel, and Dan and I, we did especially before COVID hit, we used to speak a lot at conferences, and now we do more things online, it seems, but we speak a lot to parents, and it's really like a soft spot in our heart is parents, and really we believe that this process helps heal two generations, like the parent and the child at the same time, because we grow up and we're just going to repeat what our parents taught us about how what like one of the questions we ask is what was modeled in your home growing up,
Yeah.
how were hard things, grief, sadness, like even something as simple as if you're going to cry, go to your room, or if you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. It's like
Yeah.
it's so much we don't know how to handle that, so it just gets stifled. And we learn very young that emotions aren't allowed, that emotions aren't to be trusted. um, I worked with a young girl recently who I remember she said to me the only emotion that was allowed in our home was anger. That was the
Mhm.
only one. And if you cried, you just never, you didn't cry because you would just get hit or you would get, isolated. Go, you're isolated. So it's a really amazing thing to undo and then to build. We say this is a really cool thing. I think a really cool visual is that we are like fruit producing trees, and the tree that is you has a certain fruit. And when that fruit is your results. And if you have a lot of fear or a lot of fear of rejection or those kinds of things, that's your fruit, right? You can't change fruit by pruning that tree. You can't, you're going to get the same fruit at some point. So what we talk about is we're going to help you yank up the tree and yank out the roots. And we're going to give you new seed and we're going to plant a new tree. And that's how you're going to see different results. And I promise you, it's amazing, but in 8 short weeks, what we cover, because it really truly is that life changing, like the skills that we learn. in a place that's very safe emotionally, very, very safe. No, no judgment, no comparing, no minimizing. Just that. Like if there's anything you could take from tonight, just write those things down. And anytime you have a thought, you realize how much we minimize our own emotions in order to survive.
Yeah.
Well, it's not as bad as fill in the blank. This shouldn't be bothering me right now. I should be beyond this. Like all the ways that we intellectualize and minimize our emotions. And we'll do that to our kids or our spouse or our friends, or even if we don't say it, we will think it. We will think, oh, why can't you deal with that? Or, the ways that we will do that. So yeah, it's incredibly powerful. It's so much more than usually what is presenting why someone would come to seek out
Yeah.
recovery.
Right.
Because we experience our lives at 100%. Everybody does.
Mhm.
You know, and that's even like like it, whatever your life is growing up, that's your normal.
Yeah. And it's funny, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if Vicky told you, Daniel, that one day it was totally a God thing. I was outside and somehow I did like a pocket call, a butt call. And Vicky was on the phone. It was so weird. I haven't talked to her for what, 5 years? I don't know how long it's been. But
Yeah.
I was going through a really difficult, some
Mm.
hard things with starting up this new business. And, Vicky and I were talking. I could so relate to what Monique said, because I was like, I don't need that. I had a really good childhood. I grew up in the 50s. It was all wonderful. I watched Leave It to Beaver, and my mom was the best mom ever, And then as we were talking, I'm like, oh, she was telling me things in her life. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I did have an alcoholic father, and I did. I did. I had, sisters who were crazy, psychotic, and yeah, there was a lot of trauma in my life. I just thought, oh, I had a wonderful life. What am I? I don't have any problems. I mean, I do have problems. I knew I had problems, but anyway, so that was interesting. And Vicky helped me so much just in that brief conversation we had. She gave me some tools that really helped me with that current situation I was dealing with. So that was really awesome.
Yeah.
That was so funny because I answered the phone and you were like, hello? Like, who called
How
who?
am I talking to Vicky? Yeah, that was definitely, a God thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have thought of that so many times, especially when I've been in certain situations where I would normally trigger and get really, really anxious and not be able to deal with the situation. I could calm myself down and think about the things you said, and it's helped me a lot. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy that you're here tonight.
Yeah, thanks
And,
I'm glad we came. I hope Amy enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely appreciate.
Yeah, and if your friend is Amy your friend?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you guys do know each other. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hi.
Hi, Amy.
Lisa's been giving me counsel and so she really encouraged me to join tonight. So thank you, Lisa.
Great.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you, Lisa. And we're so happy to see you guys, to meet you guys and
Yeah.
have you here. Yes. And if you do have any questions or anything at all, you can ask us here or you can reach out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just asking Amy if she had any questions. She couldn't think of any at the time at this moment, but as long as your contact information is in the email
Yeah.
that you're sending out tomorrow, if there are any questions that she has or that I have, that'll be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't always think of it right in the moment, and then it occurs to you later. So yeah, anytime, just set it up and we'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that there's a few other people on, and that's awesome. And if you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat or ask away. Susanna, we have a special guest here. Susanna is also a certified grief recovery specialist. Is there anything that you want to share about your journey or anything?
Well, I just wanted to say that at the beginning that like you were talking about the minimizing. So I went to the first time I've heard about the grief recovery method was because I went to a talk about it. A specialist was giving it, but there was a lady who has lost a sibling, a young person, probably 20 something. So of course you're like, wow, my life is good. Like I don't need this. Sounds very interesting, but at this moment, so I didn't take it, and then life happens. I had a son who died, so that's how I really went through the method. That was really helpful. But was really surprising is that when I did it again, went through it some years afterwards, I did the relationship with my mother, which had died, but when she died, I was at peace. You know, she had cancer for 4 years. She was suffering a lot of chemo. So I didn't think much about it, but like hearing you today, like how it's important to work on those um, foundational relationships because they really affect our lives. So I went through it. It was not really emotional, but afterwards it was very like a lot of like it was really amazing. Like it was like really a weight had been taken off from me. I felt more spontaneous, more confident, more, I don't know, more happy, happier. And people would tell me, "Oh, what have you done? You know, you look like more alive."
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So, so yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, and there's yeah the investment that you can make, and I just hearing Vicky and Dan talk, I can say that they're wonderful. So don't
Thank,
hesitate. It's really an amazing work.
thank you so much. So happy that you jumped on. It's so good to see you.
Good to be
Yeah.
here.
And that's really what we wanted to present tonight. We've really loved taking this opportunity to create these little workshops, and we do a free workshop every month, and you're welcome to join us every month. And each one we focus on a different topic. So last month we talked about emotional resilience, like growing in that emotional resilience. And we've done, I think the one before was on addiction, like the
And
connection
attachment,
between resolve grief and addiction. What was that, Dan?
and then attachment,
Oh,
and
and attachment. That's right. How
because we just, I mean, doing this, whenever you talk to people and you say, people go, "Oh, what do you do?" And you're like, "Oh, well, I'm a grief recovery specialist." Oh, yeah, you help people with like death and divorce, and it's like that's the only loss people ever think about. And those are, don't get me wrong, those are big losses. Those are big losses, but they're not the only losses. And so we're like, we just want to kind of highlight this to kind of help people understand. No, there's a lot of ways that grief and loss impacts their life, and a lot of it happens, I think, underneath the radar. Like you don't even realize. So you just sort of like, well, I haven't had to go through divorce and nobody's died, so I guess I'm good. And there's a lot that could be happening when you kind of like go a little bit deeper beneath the surface. So anyway, so these are kind of, we enjoy doing these because it just kind of helps highlight, oh, there's other stuff going on,
Yeah.
that we have to
And we do it on the third Monday of the month. And next month, we just decided today that we are going to focus on the connection of unresolved grief and how it can affect us physically through illness, through things that show up physically.
yeah.
Whether it can be from migraines to like all kinds of ways that
There's a book that kind of goes, it's not about grief recovery, but it just sort of talks about this component, what's called the body keeps score, and it just documents all of the different ways that emotions impact um, grief and loss. Like, wow. And you don't necessarily think of like that migraine or the whatever it is you're going through as being related to these emotional connections, but actually has a pretty big impact on it. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Yeah, it's a very important component. Like we talked about recovery from addiction in the same way when you are going after your health or any of these areas, to be sure that you are dealing with the emotional component. And that's really what this is. So that is all we have. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer, but we can also wrap up a little bit early here. We really appreciate you being here, and
Yeah,
you
it's
will
really good
get,
having you all.
yeah, and now we do have your email, and so you will get notified for our next workshop. You will also definitely get the email with the guide and the recording and our links if you want to set up a consultation call. It's always free and we're always available. And it has been a total honor to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
your
thank you guys
night
for
with
sharing
us.
your Monday night with us. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you very
so
much.
I really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
All right,
Thank you
y'all.
guys.
Have a great
Take
evening.
care. Have a
Have a great
beautiful
evening.
night.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm going to close. Oh.
I'm still on here trying to figure out how to get off. It was really nice.